Hello, Michel Juvet.
Hello.
The Fed just announced the end of its monetary easing program. Is that good news?
Yes, that's a good news because we know that the economic growth in the US is at about 3%. Corporations are making money, banks are lending money, unemployment has been reduced heavily, markets at the highest level. So it's quite rational to change the monetary policy today.
Critics often say that these extraordinary monetary policies are unfair and inefficient. What is your view?
Well, inefficient, we've seen exactly the contrary just before. So they are efficient. But we could keep in mind that probably these policies give some illusion to the governments because they believe that everything is fine. And we see that in the US that even the structural deficit, budget deficit hasn't been attacked yet. So it gives a bad impact on the governments. Now on the fairness of these policies, yes, it might be unfair because the people who profit or benefited for that are the people who have large financial assets invested in the markets. But the alternative scenario would have created probably a recession or a depression, would have been really unfair for the people who are not able to invest in financial markets.
We also hear that these policies are good for local economies but have a reverse effect internationally.
Yes, because the first effect is to make the national currency weaker and making the dollar, in this case, dropping. And we had this situation vis-à-vis the emerging countries whereby the dollar dropped against the currencies of the emerging countries. And these countries who were already suffering from a difficulty to export to the US have been handicapped by that. And they have correctly criticized the US by saying, you don't have to export your own problems to our own countries.
We are seeing that Japan is copying what the United States did. So what will the consequences be?
I think the first consequence is probably positive in terms of global liquidity. When the US is reducing the liquidity, in the same time we are going to see Japan supplying the same kind of liquidity. So it's positive for the global economy. But the second consequence, immediate consequence, is to see the yen getting weaker and the yen drop very rapidly in a few days by more than 4%.
So will Japan's competitors feel a negative impact?
There will be some, and China is in a difficult situation. China is suffering from a difficulty to increase the economic growth, and seeing the yen dropping against the renminbi, probably Chinese authorities will not remain without doing anything if it lasts.
So are we at the beginning of a new currency war, and this time starting in Asia?
Well, unfortunately it looks like, and we have to remember that when the yen is dropping heavily, it always creates problems in emerging economies and in financial markets. And the worst example is '96, when the yen dropped by 20% in 6 months. It probably helped to create the emerging market crisis of '97 and '98. The relative good news in the emerging countries today is that their situation is a bit different. The local corporations do not have the same kind of debt in foreign currencies.
Yes, and this time the yen has dropped almost 10% in the past 6 months, and maybe it will drop more.
Yes, but as you know, there is always a bad news behind the good news. So the good news of 10% might translate in a bad news of 20% drop in the next few months. And we have to keep in mind that the ECB, the European Central Bank, is going to change its monetary policy, and probably by doing so will make the euro getting weaker against the dollar, meaning that the renminbi, which is indexed to the dollar, will get stronger as well. So China will suffer from that, and we have to keep in mind that China today, in terms of global impact, is really bigger than the all emerging markets of '97.
So we'll keep an eye on all that.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Michel Juvet.
Thank you.